Hello there, this is Cassie and welcome back for another Heffy Doodle video. Today I took one sketch and I wanted to use 3 different color palettes. So let's take a look at the products we're going to be using today. The main stamp set that we're going to be using is called Chimply the Best, which is just too cute, along with the matching dies that go with it. And then we're also going to be using the Classic Sentiments stamp set. Just one set or stamp from that, but this is a great universal stamp set. We're also going to be using the Fancy Foliage Stencil. Just goes perfectly with our Chimply the Best. And then we're going to be using these Amazonian Leaves dies, which I think are really cool too. Alright, so what I have done is I have 3 different colors of cardstock, and pardon the boys, they are trying to be helpful. And I have just taken, I cut a piece down 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and then I ran that die over those 3 colors as many times as I could get leaves out of that, because I plan to just cover my piece with the leaves. And so once I've gotten all of those cut out, we're going to set those off to the side and then we'll work on our stamping. So I've pulled out all of the stamps I plan to use, and I have some Espresso cardstock that I've put into my Misty. I'm going to ink this up with some Memento Espresso Truffle, which is a very dark brown. I had used it in a video last week for Heffy Doodle, and I just thought it worked so well last time, and for these little critters which are brown, I thought it would work really well for these too. So I'm going to ink those up a couple times, and then I'm going to stamp these 3 times because I plan to have 3 cards. So here are the colors I'm going to be using for this first color palette. This is a darker color palette, so that is the E29 that I'm putting down, and I think it just complements with that Espresso Truffle ink really, really nicely. Because these chimps are the size that they are, I am just using a 2 color blend, and that E49 that I'm going to be coming in with is pretty dark, so it almost covers up the lines that I did stamp out, which is not a big deal. But yeah, it's a pretty dark color. I really wanted to go dark with these first set of monkeys. And then I'm going to come in with, for their tummies, this E42. And then I'll go over that with another color. And I didn't go real drastic with my color choices. Most of the colors are pretty close to each other when you look at the spectrum of the colors themselves. So even though it's E42 and E55, they're actually close to each other. So then our second chimp, I'm going to color a different chimp for you so that you have a different or a better idea of how each of the little chimps could get colored and where my blending is and where my shadows are. And I really have no rhyme or reason, just so you're aware. I just put them in where I think that they look good. So with this little guy, and I don't go all the way to the edges on some of the rounder parts to kind of give the eye the illusion that it's a round image. And then I'll blend that out just a little bit. And then I'll do his face as well. Now my whole reason for doing these chimps in 3 different color palettes was because when you're looking at, you know, browns and greens, sometimes that can be a little bit not very exciting. And so I chose to do 3 different color palettes so that you could have 3 completely, well, not completely, but 3 different looks with this same sketch for each of the chimps. So I'm moving on to my 3rd color palette now, which is E43, and then we're going to come in with some E44, and those are very close to each other, so when I blend that out, it blends very, very beautifully. And then for their tummies, I will use E41 and E42. So again, all very close. We end up using E41, E42, E43, and E44 for this little chimp, this whole line of chimps actually. But like I said, I chose to do a different color palette just to kind of maybe jazz up the cards themselves. So it might be a fun challenge for you to do something like that. And in the process, I also chose different greens. So they're all going to give almost a different kind of mood. And to be inspired, I chose to go to Pinterest. Pinterest is a fantastic place to go if you are stumped on your color choices or your color palette. That's exactly where I went, and it just inspired me to start looking at my Copics and choosing color palettes like that. And boy, was it fun. And I think I could do this with just about any stamp set that you come up with. You know, you might have an actual color palette, but just changing up the hues of the, let's say you use blue and pink, but just changing up the blues and the pinks a little bit can kind of change the dynamic of your card. And I'm coming in, and this is a little bit dark, these colors, and I apologize that they're not on the screen. They will be on the screen a little bit later, but I will come in and blend that out just a little bit more just because it was so dark, or the contrast was so high, and it didn't really match my little chimps, that I decided to go in and kind of change that up just a little bit. And I know that there are a lot of monkeys here along with their bananas and everything else, and it really honestly didn't take that long to color all of these. That's why sometimes when I'm making a card, I just figure, why not just stamp out a few more? All the supplies are out, and then I end up with 3 cards or a couple cards, and it's kind of fun. So here we go with our trophy. I'm using the color Y26 and Y28. And I'm going to do that for all the trophies. And then for the bananas, I'm using Y15. Again, sorry that sometimes they're not on the screen. And then I'll come in with Y35 just to darken up some of those areas. But then for each of the like brown spots of the banana, I'm using the matching color, the darkest matching color for each of the chimps. And so once I get that all colored in, I'll do that for all of them. And then they're all good to go. I'm going to move on to coloring the little leaves that I used. Again, this is from the Amazonian Leaves die, and I did this on just some cardstock that I had in my stash. So I would challenge you to just kind of look through your stash. We all have a stash of cardstock. And then I just grabbed a couple of Copics, those same Copics that I used to color the leaves for the vines. I am using for these leaf dies. And then I thought, boy, that sure is pretty stark. And so I came in with my colorless blender. Now, because this is a cardstock that doesn't typically hold alcohol ink, using your colorless blender works really great. Even using some of the lighter colors works pretty nicely too. So on this one, I didn't use the colorless blender. So I just used the G09 and then came in to blend that out just a little bit with the YG41. And I do that with all of the leaves here for this one as well. And, it looks kind of crazy right now, but when you start putting all the leaves on the card, it really starts coming together. For this one, I did G07, and then I picked up the YG23 to blend those out. And this cardstock also absorbs that alcohol quite a bit, so that is why it bleeds out so nicely in this case. And now if I were actually trying to color a detailed image, I would really not appreciate the bleeding, but this works really well. So now I'm going to grab all the matching dies for my Chimply the Best Chimps, and you can see there's the 3 different color palettes that I have chosen. Everything is colored and ready to go, and I'm just going to use a little bit of low-tack tape, in this case it's washi tape, to tape all those dies down, and I'll run that through my die cutting machine, and then I'll put those in their little piles. I tend to do assembly line coloring and, putting things together, which is, I guess, the essence of an assembly line. My cardstock bases are all different too. So this one is Sidewalk cardstock by Brutus Monroe, and this one is Whitewash cardstock by Brutus Monroe. And then I have some lunch bag cardstock, and the only reason why that one is top folding is just because that's what I had in my stash right there ready to go. I'm going to do a little bit of sponging. So here I've grabbed the Crushed Olive Distress Oxide ink along with my mini ink blending tool, and this just kind of proves to be not necessary on the craft cardstock, the lunch bag. It doesn't really show up that well. On the Sidewalk, it works pretty nicely, and this is the Twisted Citron. And so I'm just holding that in place because I didn't plan to stencil the entire background. It wasn't a big deal. And then I'll clean off the stencil in between each of the sponging. And then I'm going to use some cracked pistachio on the Whitewash cardstock. I thought that looked so nice on there. And then when I have it in the 3 spots, I will clean off my stencil and start placing things. So those aren't attached yet, but I just wanted to see where it was going to go so I could stamp out my sentiment that says, "You are Chimply the best." And then I am going to just use some liquid glue along with my reverse tweezers to start getting everything put down. And I'm just going to grab all the pieces that would be to the back because I am going to have a few pieces popped up on foam tape. So everything will get put down with the reverse tweezers along with the liquid glue that will be flush to the back. So it's going to be this top corner, and then also the little chimp that's standing there, and it's going to look like he's standing on the leaves and his little arms are out. He's going to be all glued down as well. So I've got him already glued down, and I've got those leaves at the bottom already glued down, and I'm putting some Doris Skinny strips on the back of my vine. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some foam squares all over the back of the the other two chimps along with a couple of the leaves. So I'm going to put down this little guy, and he's going to fit right behind those other two leaves that are popped up. So that gives this fun little dimension. And then the one who's standing on the back there, he just looks like he's kind of in the background, which is kind of fun. And then we're going to put a little banana in his paw, because I love how this die works. His little paw is also cut out as well, so it cuts around them and he can hold things. Is that not the coolest? All right, and then we're going to put a banana in his little paw. Is it a paw? Do monkeys have paws? I always ask these questions because I'm unaware of the anatomy of the animals. But yeah, so I'm going to pop him up so that it looks like he's hanging from that vine. And I'm going to put a bunch of bananas under his paw. That's what I'm going to call it. And then I'll just glue that down underneath. For the other two, I end up popping the bananas up, but for this one, I did not. For the other two cards, that is. And then we're going to actually decorate the inside. I have enough leftover pieces, and I am so enjoying decorating the insides. I'll trim away all the excess pieces that are sticking off the sides. And then that way it'll just give this illusion that things are continuing past the card. That's why it's kind of fun to put your pieces off the card a little bit. And we'll just take those leftover pieces that all go with this color palette, and we'll stick those all on the inside. And then, and I'm kind of enjoying going on both sides. If you've got enough elements, why not decorate both sides? It just adds so much to the card, and it gives you extra space to be able to write if you'd like to. So I've got all those little Amazonian leaves on there, and then I'm going to obviously glue my chimp down as well. I can't pop him up because the card wouldn't close very easily, and I'm going to have him holding the little trophy. And I've got two sentiments. So the one sentiment is from the Chimply the Best, and the other one comes from Classic Sentiments, and the one that's from the Classic Sentiments says, "You've got this." I just think that is so fun. And so I'll stamp, "You are the Chimpion," and then above that I'm going to stamp, "You've got this." So on the outside it's, "You're Chimply the Best, you are the Chimpion." All right, so let's take a look at the 3 cards that I made today. I would love to know what you think of this, challenging yourself to grab one sketch and 3 different color palettes, even if they are in the same hue. I would love to know what you think. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by.